Tigris Snow can be seen as a representation of the extreme self-modification trend. This may stem from a desperate need to gain control over her body, express her identity, or cope with trauma. Alternatively, she may simply have wanted to feel better about herself. Individuals like Anthony Lofredo, known as the Black Alien, explained in a 2021 interview that modifying his body made him feel more comfortable in himself. He does not view his changes as mutation, but rather as a form of personal evolution and aesthetic improvement. Similarly, Justin Jedlicker, often referred to as the human Ken doll, has altered his appearance largely out of a desire for self-expression and a fascination with wealth and glamour. While Tigris may have altered her body for similar personal reasons, this interpretation becomes less certain when we consider the influence of President Snow, whose values and control may have shaped or even pressured her transformation. As Tigris Snow's cousin, Coriolanus Snow becomes a central figure in her early life, particularly during the dark days and their aftermath, when she assumes a maternal role towards him. Her parents are absent from the narrative, likely having died before or during the war, although this is never explicitly confirmed. At just 8 years old, Tigris takes on significant responsibility, caring for a 5-year-old Snow while also supporting their grandmother. This early burden suggests a childhood shaped by loss, instability, and premature adulthood, factors that may have influenced her later relationship with identity, control, and self-transformation. These factors suggest that Tigris' transformation may not be the result of a single motivation, but rather a complex interplay of personal desire, psychological coping, and external pressures. To better understand these influences, it is important to examine her early experiences more closely. We are first introduced to Tigris when she helps refurbish Coriolanus Snow's shirt for the reaping day, demonstrating her skill with a needle. She reassures him to trust her ability to restore it, highlighting both her resourcefulness and her role in maintaining appearances despite their poverty. While waiting for the return, Coriolanus briefly considers the possibility that Tigris might use her body to obtain a new shirt, as she possesses nothing else of value to trade. Although he quickly dismisses the thought, insisting that the House of Snow has not fallen that far, he still entertains the idea of others placing a value on her body. He describes Tigris as not conventionally beautiful, yet possessing a certain sweetness and vulnerability that might invite exploitation. However, this perceived vulnerability reflects more about Coriolanus' mindset than Tigris' true nature. In his worldview, kindness is often equated with weakness, and Tigris' compassion is therefore interpreted as vulnerability. Physically, she is described as slender, with long legs and a pointed nose, features that combined with her demeanor make her appear delicate in his eyes. This moment is significant because it reveals both the harsh realities of their society and Coriolanus' developing ideology. The idea of trading one's body is not unthinkable. It is a recognized survival strategy among those with nothing else to offer. This is further reflected in the later narratives, where victors, such as Finnick Odyea, are exploited in similar ways. The Snow family's desperation stems from the loss of their wealth during the dark days. Their fortunes, largely tied to investment in ammunition production in District 13, were effectively destroyed. As a result, maintaining status becomes an illusion, one that Tigris helps sustain through her labor, her sacrifice, and her quiet resilience. Tigris Snow forgoes university after graduating from the academy in order to pursue her dream of becoming a designer. She's meant to train as an apprentice. However, Fabricia treats her less as a trainee and more as a source of exploited labor, requiring her to perform demeaning tasks, such as giving foot massages and cleaning clumps of magenta hair from the drains. Despite this, Tigris never complains. She refuses to hear any criticism of her employer. Instead, she remains grateful, pleased simply to have a place within the world of fashion. This reveals a great deal about Tigris' character and the condition she endured as an apprentice. Such sustained mistreatment can have a profound impact on an individual's psychology, shaping how they perceive their own worth, their boundaries, and their identity. This may have contributed to her need to reclaim her identity and could have driven her towards more desperate means of survival, including the possibility of exchanging her body for financial stability and a sense of self-establishment. Tigris Snow calls Coriolanus Snow Corio, a nickname that reflects warmth, familiarity, and a deeply personal bond. However, towards the end, this shifts to the more formal Coriolanus, signaling an emotional distance and a fracture in their relationship. During the 10th Hunger Games, it is Tigris Snow who suggests that Coriolanus bring a gift to Lucy Greybird, a gesture that becomes the foundation of his bond with her. While this serves a strategic purpose, it is rooted in Tigris' empathy. She wants Lucy Gray to be seen not merely as a tribute, but as a human being. Tigris tells him, imagine how terrified she must be, Coriol. How alone she must feel. If it were me, anything you could do to make me feel like you cared would go a long way. No more than that, like I was of value. Take her something, even a token that lets her know you value her. This moment reveals the depth of Tigris' empathy. She frames care not as grand gestures, but as simple acts of recognition, making someone feel seen, valued, and human. At the same time, it subtly reflects her own inner world, suggesting that the desire to feel valued is not only something she recognizes in others, but something she herself longs for. Tigris Snow also defends Lucy Greybird, insisting that she's just a girl, in response to the disapproval of Grandmom, who objects to Coriolanus Snow feeding and eating with his tribute. Beyond words, Tigris' compassion is expressed through her actions. She prepares bread pudding for Lucy Gray, encourages Coriolanus to treat her with kindness, and even goes as far as washing and ironing Lucy Gray's interview dress. These gestures reflect both empathy and intention. On one hand, they restore dignity to someone who has been stripped of it. On the other, they also contribute to helping Coriolanus succeed in the games. At her core, Tigris is consistently guided by kindness. It is one of the defining traits that shapes her decisions and relationships. The first time Tigris Snow admits to having done things she's not proud of comes when Coriolanus expresses discomfort with Lucy Gray singing about surviving through her charms. Tigris responds, I don't think anyone who survived the war and the years after can blame her. We all did things we are not proud of. When Coriolanus insists that she did not, she replies with a rare edge of bitterness. We all did. Maybe you were too little to remember. Maybe you didn't know how bad it really was. This moment is revealing. It exposes a side of Tigris that is often hidden beneath her kindness, a side shaped by survival, hardship, and moral compromise. Her words suggest that, like many others, she may have been forced into difficult choices in order to endure the aftermath of the war. Tigris Snow is also noted to have the unusual habit of nibbling on raw uncooked meat, suggesting a lingering psychological and behavioral imprint from the trauma of war and its aftermath. This detail may symbolize a deeper connection between survival and instinct, where prolonged hardship begins to blur the line between civility and necessity. It is therefore possible that this aspect of her character informs her later decision to transform herself into a feline figure, an animal often associated with carnivorous instinct. Rather than being purely aesthetic, her transformation could be interpreted as an embodiment of survival, identity, and the instincts shaped by her past. Tigris Snow sacrifices a great deal to preserve the Snow family name. Growing up, she's unable to bring her partner home as the family's apartment, though damaged from the war, reflects a level of poverty they are determined to hide. As a result, she is perceived as unserious or distant within the relationship, which ultimately leads to its breakdown. Whether she forms any meaningful relationships after this is not explored in the text. This moment highlights the personal cost of maintaining status and illusion. Tigris' identity and emotional life are shaped by the need to protect the Snow name, forcing her to sacrifice not only comfort but also intimacy and connection. Coriolanus Snow admits at one point that Tigris Snow is the only member of the Snow family in his generation. Without her, he would be facing the future entirely alone. Before he leaves for the districts, they remain on good terms, and Tigris continues to address him as Corio, reflecting their closeness. This raises an important question. How did their relationship deteriorate to the point of complete estrangement? Tigris even defends Coriolanus Snow, suggesting that he was set up to fail within a system designed around cruelty. She describes the Hunger Games as an unnatural and vicious punishment, questioning how a good person could be expected to take part in them. This strongly suggests that Tigris is fundamentally opposed to the system itself. Unlike many in the capital, she recognizes the moral distortion at its core and refuses to accept it as normal. During Coriolanus' time in District 12, Tigris writes to him. She mentions rumors she has heard, possibly from pluribus, that Coriolanus followed Lucy Greybird there. The fact that such information reaches her suggests that his actions are no longer private. and that his reputation is beginning to shift beyond her understanding. As a result, the image of the good person she once defended begins to fracture. Distance in this sense does not merely separate them physically, it begins to divide them morally. This shift may explain why, by the end, she no longer calls him Coriolanus, but instead addresses him more formally as Coriolanus, a subtle yet powerful indication that the person she once knew is no longer there. Tigris Snow eventually becomes a stylist for the Hunger Games. Katniss Everdeen later recalls seeing her in her younger years, before she underwent extensive physical modifications that pushed her appearance beyond conventional beauty and into something more unsettling. Katniss even wonders whether Tigris was the name she was given at birth, or one she chose to reflect the identity she had created through her transformation. This interpretation may reflect how others perceive her. However, her transformation may have been driven by entirely different reasons, ones that are not immediately visible on the surface. By the time of the rebellion, Tigris is working alongside Plutarch Heavensbay, positioning herself in direct opposition to the rule of Coriolanus Snow, her own cousin. This shift is significant. It marks the final break between them, not just personal but ideological. Tigris, who once defended Coriolanus Snow and believed in his goodness, ultimately rejects both him and the system he comes to embody. It is possible that Tigris eventually discovered that Coriolanus played a role in the death of Sejanus Plain. If she confronted him upon his return, this could have marked a significant fracture in their relationship, transforming doubt into disillusionment. She may also have come to suspect him in the disappearance of Lucy Greybird. Even without confirmation, such suspicions alone could create a level of distrust that could not easily be undone. Another possibility is that Tigris, as a stylist, initially supported the transformation of the Hunger Games into a more performative and entertaining spectacle. It is conceivable that she believed in a version of the games that could be softened or reformed, and that Coriolanus may have used the belief to gain her support, perhaps even promising change if he ever come into power. However, if such expectations existed, they were never fulfilled. The games did not end. Instead, they became more deeply embedded within the Capitol system, further reinforcing the cruelty Tigris had once questioned. At the same time, Tigris' own transformation may have taken on a different meaning. What may have begun as identity, expression, or adaptation could have gradually shifted into something more extreme, pushing beyond beauty into deliberate alteration. Whether this transformation was entirely her own choice, a psychological response, or something shaped by external forces remains unclear. Given what Dr. Volumina Gore was capable of, experimenting on bodies and blurring the line between human and mortal, it is not impossible that Tigris' final form carries echoes of a system that reshapes people as much as it controls them. In the end, Tigris' story is not just about transformation. It is about survival, it's about identity, it's about the cost of living in a world that constantly demands both. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.